The ocean shimmered beneath the April sun as the RMS Titanic cut through the Atlantic waters, proud and invincible. To those on board, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Among them were Americans chasing new lives, returning from business trips, or simply seeking the thrill of crossing the ocean aboard the most luxurious ship ever built. Each of them, from the lavish first-class suites to the modest third-class bunks, carried dreams, secrets, and stories. 21-year-old Emily Carter stood near the railing, her gloved hands gripping the polished wood as the breeze danced around her face. Her auburn curls, carefully pinned beneath a feathered hat, fluttered in the wind. Emily had never seen anything like this before. She was born in a small Ohio town where her father owned a general store and her mother taught piano lessons. This trip was a gift from her uncle, a wealthy businessman in New York, who hoped to introduce her to East Coast society. Emily had just spent 2 months in Paris, attending finishing school, seeing the Eiffel Tower, and learning to navigate the social circles she would soon be part of. Not far from her in first class, Nathan Whitmore lit a cigar and adjusted his crisp collar. The 34-year-old financier from Boston was returning home after a successful negotiation with English investors. His brown eyes scanned the deck, always calculating, always observing. Nathan wasn't the kind of man who got sentimental about anything, but even he had to admit, the Titanic was something special. The carved woodwork, the scent of cigars and perfume in the air, the laughter and clinking glasses. It was all intoxicating. Down in second class, Joseph and Anna Monroe sat side by side in the reading room. The young couple had been married for less than a year and were finally taking their honeymoon. Joseph, a schoolteacher from Connecticut, had saved up for months just for this trip. Anna, a nurse from Philadelphia, had never left the United States before. Every detail of the ship fascinated her, from the electric elevators to the ornate staircases. They had made friends with another couple, Mark and Lily Harris from Chicago, and planned to spend the day exploring the decks and perhaps even sneaking into the first-class lounge just to peek at how the other half lived. Below, in third class, 13-year-old Thomas Blake leaned against a bunk, his eyes wide with wonder. His father, Samuel, had brought the family from Kansas, hoping to start fresh in New York where Samuel's cousin had promised him a job in a factory. Thomas was more interested in the big city's stories. He imagined yellow taxicabs, tall buildings that touched the sky, and newspapers flying off stands on every corner. His little sister, Grace, clung to their mother's dress as the ship creaked and swayed, the hum of the engine a constant reminder of the journey ahead. There was something timeless about the Titanic. It made people dream bigger. It made them believe anything was possible. Emily Carter spent the evening in the grand dining room, seated next to a retired colonel from Georgia, who entertained the table with stories of his travels through India. The chandeliers sparkled like stars, and the string quartet played softly in the background. When she excused herself and stepped onto the deck, she was joined by Nathan Whitmore, who recognized her from earlier. "Miss Carter, isn't it?" he asked, tipping his hat. She smiled politely. "Yes, and you are." "Nathan Whitmore, Boston. Financier. I believe we share a mutual acquaintance, your uncle, Theodore Hartman." Emily raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Uncle Theo. You know him. Worked with him last fall. He's a sharp man. Talks about you often." They chatted for nearly an hour. Nathan told her about New York's social scene, the parks, the libraries, the parties. Emily, in turn, described her adventures in Paris. There was a spark between them, but neither said it aloud. Meanwhile, down in second class, Anna and Joseph danced awkwardly to the tune of a lively Irish jig played in one of the social halls. Mark Harris teased Joseph about his 2 left feet, while Lily and Anna laughed until tears rolled down their cheeks. For a brief moment, it didn't matter what class they were in. They were all just people, sharing joy on a ship that seemed to defy the laws of the sea. In third class, young Thomas lay awake in his bunk, whispering stories to Grace about the buildings they would see in New York. "There's a building so tall it scrapes the sky," he said. "Will we live in one?" Grace asked. "Maybe," he whispered. "Papa says we'll have a room with a window." Mama will have a kitchen, and you'll get a new doll. Grace smiled in the dark. Then came the night of April 14, 1912. First, no one thought much of it. Jolt. A strange vibration. Few rattling plates. On deck, Nathan looked up from his conversation with a British journalist and frowned. Emily had just returned to her cabin when a steward knocked on her door and told her to dress warmly and come on deck as a precaution. She wrapped herself in a fur-lined coat and climbed up to find confusion. Crew members whispered, passengers muttered. The stars above were bright, eerily so. The iceberg had torn open the Titanic's side like paper. Water was flooding the lower decks. In second class, Joseph and Anna were told to remain calm and stay in their cabins. But Joseph's instincts said otherwise. He grabbed Anna's hand, and together they joined others climbing toward the upper decks. They passed stewards, crewmen, and worried passengers, some still in nightclothes. Joseph didn't stop until they reached the lifeboats. By then, the crew had begun allowing women and children to board. Anna resisted. "I'm not leaving without you," she whispered, gripping his hand. "You have to," he replied. "Please, Anna." She kissed him hard once, and then reluctantly stepped into the lifeboat. As it lowered into the icy darkness, she stared up at him, committing his face to memory. Nathan found Emily again by chance. She was pale, trembling, eyes wide. He took off his coat and draped it around her. "You're going to be okay," he said. "You're not coming?" she asked. "They're not letting most men on yet. I'll be fine." He helped her into the boat, but just as she was about to sit, she reached out and gripped his hand. "Promise me something," she said. "Anything. If I survive, tell my uncle you saved me. Tell him. Tell him I met someone wonderful on the Titanic." Nathan gave her a look, soft, almost tender, and nodded. She was lowered away, disappearing into the cold night. In third class, chaos reigned. Samuel Blake lifted Grace into his arms and pushed Thomas ahead of him through the maze of corridors. The crew had locked several gates to keep steerage passengers from flooding into the upper decks, but some men were tearing them open, screaming in multiple languages. Thomas ran as fast as he could, not looking back. He held Grace's hand when his father passed her to him, and they ran up slippery stairs, past people praying, past overturned luggage and fallen lamps. They made it to the deck, where a lifeboat was being prepared. Samuel looked at his wife and shook his head. "You go with them," he said. "Get the children to New York." "No," she wept. "I won't leave without you. You have to. For them. For me." Thomas, frozen in fear, watched his mother sob as she kissed their father goodbye. He didn't understand what was happening, only that everything had changed. They were helped into the lifeboat, and as it descended, Thomas saw his father for the last time, standing on the deck, one arm raised. At 2:20 a.m., the Titanic slipped beneath the waves. More than 1,500 people died that night. Frozen water, silent stars, screams echoing into the dark. Emily Carter was rescued by the Carpathia. She never saw Nathan again. She would later describe him in interviews as the bravest man she had ever met. She went on to work with women's charities in New York, helping immigrants and young girls find their place in society. But she never married. His memory stayed with her. Anna Monroe arrived in New York alone. She waited every day at the docks, hoping Joseph had somehow survived. But his body was never recovered. She wore her wedding ring until the day she died. Thomas Blake never forgot that night. He and Grace were raised by their mother in the Bronx. He grew up to be a writer, publishing a best-selling memoir about the Titanic and the father who saved him. The Titanic was a ship built with grandeur, but it carried something far more fragile, hope. And in that cold ocean, those American passengers lost more than their lives. They lost the futures they dreamed of, the families they longed to build, the memories never made. But in surviving, those who lived carried the legacy of the others. They told their stories. They honored the quiet heroism, the tragic goodbyes, the whispered promises beneath the stars. The Titanic sank, but their voices still rise, echoing across the waves.